The State of Israel, it is important to recall, was conceived by Zionists as a Jewish state before World War II began. Before 1948, Jews and Palestinians had been living in peace in historic Palestine as neighbors. To create the State of Israel, Great Britain, which was administering the territory at the time, agreed to allocate 55% of historic Palestine to the new State of Israel. The Zionists then persuaded Great Britain to increase the allocation to 78%. The 22% of land that was left to the Palestinians was demarcated as what we now call the Green Line. That Green Line demarcates the land that was recognized by Great Britain as Palestinian land. The land that was allocated to Israel in 1948 was not an empty land. The arable land was filled with Palestinian villages. The Jews who settled the State of Israel created it by violence, massacring thousands of Palestinians, including women and children, and driving an additional 750,000 of them from their homes permanently. 85% of the Palestinian people were dispossessed. 90% of the Palestinians who fled were not just running away, they were fleeing from Jewish forces. More than half of them before the State of Israel was created, while still a British mandate. The Palestinian name for this collective trauma is the Nakba. In 1967, in the Six-Day War, Israel occupied 100% of historic Palestine and continues to occupy all of it to this day. I include Gaza in this description, even though Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, including from its settlements in Gaza at that time. Because after Hamas won the election in 2006, peacefully and democratically, Israel barricaded Gaza behind walls, barbed wire, and closed entry gates. Israel controls 100% of the access to Gaza by land, by air, and by sea. Many international law scholars view this as a continuing occupation because it essentially amounts to continuing comprehensive control of Gaza, not with inside, but of everything that goes inside and out of it. Yes, Palestinians fought back, and for many years did not recognize Israel's right to exist as a state. But the situation changed in 1988, when Arafat did recognize Israel's right to exist. Hamas has not changed its charter, but what many people do not understand about Hamas's position is that since winning the election in 2006, Hamas has repeatedly offered to live in peace with Israel. It will not recognize what has happened to the Palestinians as right, as anything that Israel had a right to do, but it has repeatedly offered to live in peace with Israel if Israel would withdraw to the Green Line, remove its settlements, and deal with the right of return that the Palestinians have. Israel, for its part, has repeatedly refused. And much of its conduct, I submit to you, in the last couple of years needs to be understood as tactics designed to obfuscate its refusal to accept peace in exchange for ending its occupation, which is unlawful. Israel's intentions could not have been stated more clearly than in Ariel Sharon's own words to Winston Churchill in 1978. And these words are printed on the back of their little postcards I left on, there's a table back there under the window, with a map of Palestine as it has been transformed since 1948. And it's an amazing little map to look at. On the back of it is this quotation of Ariel Sharon's, and I'm quoting, "We'll make a pastrami sandwich of them. We'll insert a strip of Jewish settlement in between the Palestinians and then another strip of Jewish settlement right across the West Bank so that in 25 years' time, neither the United Nations, nor the United States, nor nobody will be able to tear it apart." And that is exactly what has happened. Sharon's prophecy is now the facts on the ground.